and everyone on LinkedIn Live. My name is Jake, and this is my good friend Kyle.
Hey, Jake, I'm Kyle. I'm here in Austin, Texas, a franchise consultant with FranNet.
And we are
Good
here
to
with
see you.
the Founders Way, and we love streaming on Reddit, even though the audience on Reddit hasn't been the same since they've made some changes to the platform. But we are interested in streaming, in podcasting, in talking about entrepreneurship, startups, and all things business.
Yeah, so we're also live on LinkedIn right now and also on YouTube. And Jake, it's been a couple of weeks since we've been together. I know that it's been lots of stuff going on, not the least of which is some tech issues that we've overcome. How you been? What's new in your world?
So my life as in an early stage fintech startup has been, man, it's been a roller coaster. And I know they say that about startups, um, but we have had a lot of ups and downs. So one of the things I wanted to talk about with you today was partners, and when
Mm-hmm.
people that you partner with aren't reliable. How
Yeah.
do you how do you handle that? And I also understand that someone from a previous audience has left us with a few questions that we could potentially discuss. But I was hoping to start with that question and get your thoughts, Kyle.
Yeah. Well, let's start with partnerships. There's two ships that I stay away from. It's sinking ships and partnerships. So I don't mean to go negative so quick on that, but I try to do that without that. However, we know that um, it's hard to do things alone. You need good partners along the way. Um, and yet, at some point, interests are going to diverge, right? What we need, when you develop a partnership agreement, those clients of mine that I advise on the matter is making sure that you have the means to hold each other accountable throughout. And that needs to be a two-way street. And there needs to be a means by which it's real clear who contributes how much in terms of time and money and expertise, and who gets how much in terms of equity, or salary or whatever. And what are the provisions for splitting if the partnership cannot continue as you envisioned it. So that's the short of it. But same as a marriage, really.
Partnerships can mean a lot of different things, and because we're an early stage fintech that we're a little low on cash, we're trying to raise. Partnerships are, I'm trying to find people who are really interested in what we're doing. We put a lot of effort into this. We're getting great feedback. A common comment that I get from people now, like just all the time across the board, is like people are like, "Wow, you guys have done so much."
Hmm.
Um, but I've had a few partners that have let me down, and I guess it's hard when people tell you one thing, but either don't back it up or hadn't done some work that they kind of are saying that they've said they've done. And
Hmm.
that's just something that happens in business and life. People let you down. I guess it's amplified a little bit in a startup business. If you were paying someone a salary, right? There's more
Amplified, huh?
documentation. There's more rules. You could you could put someone on a PIP, right? Or you could decide to break your partnership. But when
What's a
you're
PIP?
making um what does PIP stand for? When someone's doing bad in sales, they generally go on a PIP, performance
Oh, a
review.
performance improvement program or something like that?
Yeah,
Okay. You have to bear with me. That sounded like something special that I hadn't heard of before.
in sales, right?
I've never been part of a sales team, but
A performance improvement plan. So
okay.
so like if you go to Reddit r sales, you'll see people talk about pips all the time, and someone will be like, "Hey, I've just been put on a pip. What should I do?" So the performance plan basically means like you're not hitting your quota, and we're going to put pressure on you. You need to kind
Yeah.
of deliver or get out. Um,
Yeah. Yeah, that makes
and
sense. I am on
because
that sales Reddit, and it's full of jargon that I have to look up sometimes.
Yeah, well, PIP is a common one for people in the sales space,
Yeah.
um, and it makes for interesting discussions because sometimes people are behind and they're legitimately put on kind of like a PIP, and sometimes companies are suffering and they're facing a recession, and so suddenly they kind of come to their sales teams and there's that floating goals kind of thing. But because we're early stage, we have to
Mhm.
rely on people's word, and there's just been a few times lately people have come and said one thing, and then either something didn't happen or something else happened. And hey, man, it's just something else to navigate.
Words versus deeds, man.
Do you have people in
Um,
the franchise space that then, you sell them a contract, they are supposed to do X to make Y happen, and they don't do X, and they come back to you and say, "Hey, how come Y didn't happen?"
I do. Yeah, I do, and I think that if well, fortunately, I've been able to avoid that a lot. If I run into a situation where I have a subcontractor where I ask for a delivery and it doesn't happen, usually there's compensation tied to that in some way.
Yes.
Um, and the privilege of withholding it if the mark isn't hit, you know. And it's just disappointing though if it's kind of a monolithic deliverable and I've put half down and I never got the other.
Yeah.
It's either done or it's not done, but I'm already halfway in on the investment, and that's kind of disappointing. But sometimes you just have to cut your losses, or um, I don't know. I think the older I get, the more I'm kind of a one strike and you're out kind of guy. you know, there is no pip. You either did it or you didn't, and
Yeah, and
we're gonna move on if you did not.
that's a key point for my situation, right? Because if people were a more advanced startup and had more money in the bank, you'd probably, if someone was a developer and wasn't doing what they asked you to, you'd probably fire them. But because we're low on
Yeah, and
cash and
that's
so close to the end, getting someone even just up to speed on everything we're working on would be a huge project in itself. So getting rid of someone at a late stage, um, and honestly, not having the money to pay like a better partner leaves us in a
yeah,
tricky
that's part of it.
situation where we've just got to put on some pressure and milk things along and deal with the delays.
You bring up a good point because when you're early stage and you can't just swing a bunch of cash around, it's amazing what people will do for money, right? Um, but when you don't have it or it's really small, right, then you really have to rely on character judgment to figure out are these people are going to make it through the thick and the thin, and right now we're thin, right?
Yeah,
And are they going to make it through that valley into the thick parts?
that raises
And
another
that's
interesting
tough.
question because I'm meeting a lot of people on Reddit and Discord and the other platforms that we both work on. And there's a lot of people that say they want to help. Like, oh, hey, it's really interesting what you're doing. We'd like to help. There's this great thing that we do to help startups. But by the way, we want this much money for it. It's
Sure. What's
amazing.
in it for
It's
me?
amazing how much money is in the startup consulting space. There's a lot of people making a lot of money for it. I guess when people
Mhm.
raise, they need to move quickly, and there's people that can help with that. But some of these people take a big bite. It's really fascinating to me.
Yeah. Yeah. And
I'm curious how much they can
their hope
deliver,
is
but I don't have the money to find out right now. But people are like, "Yeah, give us 10,000 a month and we'll do this." And it sounds great. I guess if you can deliver that for 10,000 a month, that'd be amazing if you could help me scale this business. But I
sure.
don't have 10,000 a month to throw at a consultant at the moment.
No. No. I mean, sometimes you just gotta get scrappy. And I showed you that logo I made for my solar trailer business I'm starting.
Yeah.
That was totally me. I didn't farm that out to, a logo designer in Argentina. It was like I was just me messing with, Photoshop.
Well,
Um,
if
but
franchising doesn't work out, you have a logo business waiting for you.
I don't know, man. We'll work on something for the Founders Way. I've already got ideas. I'll share them with you afterward.
That would be
Um,
great.
I
So
wanted to
go ahead.
go ahead.
Just to switch gears for a moment, I was interested to say that we were at the Boston FinTech Week last week. And for
Yeah.
anyone interested in fintech, it was in a really amazing 4-day event. And Amplify was featured at a few events through our relationship with the Boston FinTech Sandbox. And I have to say, I personally have been in a long journey, right? 4 or 5 years ago, I wanted to get into fintech. I came from a small brokerage equipment finance background, couldn't find a job, getting into SaaS. SaaS sales, like tech sales, wasn't an opportunity for me. I went out and got a master's degree in digital innovation from Brandeis. From graduating, I thought I was going to get that degree and go work with a big company. Never thought I was going to come found. Worked for a big company and found that what they were doing wasn't that helpful to customers. And I've been on this journey for just over a year and a half. And in that time, I've researched every fintech product I could bump into or get my hands on, just kind of playing Jenga out in the space, like, what works and what doesn't. And we built up a team. And I really feel like I have some fintech expertise now. I've been with some of the industry thought leaders, some of the people really leading innovation in the space, and we can talk to any of them and potentially fit and partner with them. So having come back from FinTech Week, I'm extremely excited about the fintech space, what's going to be happening in the coming years with all kinds of automations for all kinds of businesses. But I'm also keen to leverage everything that we've learned about fintech and to see if we can get out there to do more podcasting, hit some more
Mhm.
panels, get on the circuit, help companies. And so I'm keen to get out there. I'm keen to get Amplify out there. I'm keen to get out there. I want to talk fintech with anyone I can.
Yeah. That sounds exciting, man. It sounds like you were really energized by, what you
It was
discovered.
a it was a cool week. I mean, we talked to some really inspirational people. There was one company I was really impressed by, who's kind of cracked the code of being able to do digital underwriting in a way that helps kind of more underserved communities that might be left out in the bank. And they've shown that they can help to identify these people, get them approved, and that it can be profitable for them as well. And so that kind of go to market strategy is really exciting to me.
So, and I'm thinking about, what you've been doing with this is kind of like a software company, right? Fintech. I mean, that's what we're talking about. You're starting a software company. And I got some feedback from a gentleman named Nile, and he had some questions. And, maybe both of us have done software companies in the past. You're in the middle of it right now. I had done one before. There were some questions up there that I think, maybe we can cherry pick. It seems like
Your
the one that
your
I was
friend
hoping to.
your friend has asked some really excellent questions, and in fact, they're kind of broad. They're great questions, and we could probably do a whole episode on each and every question. But
we
there
we
was one you
could.
identified that you want to jump into.
Well, I think that it, is it important to have a lot of money to start a software company? Um, I think that the question is because yes, there's money that goes into development, there's money that goes into marketing, there's money that goes into feature improvements and getting beyond um, a just your first pass, right? And I think that the short answer to all of that is yes. It takes money to make money,
Yeah, or or
without a
or
doubt.
prowess, but I would there are people that are lucky enough that they have that aptitude for coding something and build something themselves, and that's always
Yeah,
amazed me.
yeah.
But I would
I
make
mean,
one
there.
argument that there are a lot of no code, low code tools that people can explore now. But ultimately, software does not grow out of the ground.
No, it doesn't. And so, yes, you're right. People are lucky because they can build it from scratch. People are also lucky because they're really good at selling something that doesn't exist and finding the resources to build it once they've figured out there's a demand. People are lucky in that they chose their parents wisely and they don't need to worry about having cash to start a startup. So those are the main, or they're really
Hmm.
lucky and that they just um, spent less than they earned for several years before deciding to start a business and have cash reserves to rely on, or maybe a spouse that's really supportive, both emotionally and financially, or, whatever it takes, right? Those are all legit ways that you can get started off on a business. It's especially, I think, challenging for somebody who's got developer chops and wants to start something, because you'll find yourself very quickly in a position that if you're the one behind the keyboard and you're starting trying to run a company, you need a non-tech founder, really. Um, you often these things are successful if you have a tech founder and a non-tech founder,
That
because
was gonna be the
somebody's
next
got to
thing I
do
was
the sales and somebody's got to do the development, you
that
know?
was the next thing I was gonna say is that, partnership, then if you don't have a lot of money, partnership becomes that next viable solution. And again,
Yeah,
Reddit has a community for
yeah.
that, right? There's Reddit co-founder, there's StartHawk, there's AngelList, there's a number of places where if you have the fortitude, you can go out and try to make these things happen, but it's not always that easy.
Yeah, that's right. And the way that I started out, I'm a bootstrapper. I have trouble raising money. I have trouble borrowing money, and that's my own head trash, nobody else's. But I love to bootstrap. So what I did was I saved up a few tens of thousands of dollars, and I just went out and sold, like, through sheer force of will, a solution that didn't exist. And then instead of getting a startup or a tech co-founder that had an equity, I just hired the guy. And I burned through the last of my cash reserves paying salaries to attract people in the hopes that they would pull through. Now, here's why it worked. And the biggest danger of why it might not have worked was I knew those people. I'd worked with them for years. And so I knew that I could count on a couple of folks to, like, all right, let's pull a rabbit out of our hat when it matters, and now it matters, right? But there's no substitute really, and no matter how you want to arrange it, that you got to have somebody focused on biz dev and somebody focused on development, like tech development.
But you are, trust and reliability is a two-way street, and those people wouldn't have jumped in if they didn't believe in your mission. You had some product that did something and they believed it was going to benefit, and so trust was a two-way street, and you were very lucky that you had those relationships when you reached that place, and you had some funds to make it happen.
Yeah, the funds were pretty small, quite frankly, and I was in a lot of credit card debt for a while.
But you made it.
It's
You made it
it's
work.
true.
That
Yeah,
is
it
the
was
dream.
it was a long time when I was the last one getting paid, and often that was 0 because payroll is a demanding mistress.
Yeah.
But, I think that, the thing that I discovered about myself that I didn't know that I had is I could be incredibly persuasive when I really believe in something.
Yeah.
And I was persuasive enough to sell something. I was persuasive enough to get a dozen people to jump on board my company and grow it, to I think we did 1.3 million in revenue the first year. And,
That is
it
that
was
is something that
tricky
one
though.
I believe that about you, and two, when the longer I'm in this kind of startup thing, and the more founders I meet, um, I do think fortitude is one of the top things.
Oh,
Someone
yeah.
that
I don't
really
know.
sticks with it.
I don't know if, this camera is good enough, image-wise to capture what's going on right up here in my head. I got a shock of gray hair.
Yeah,
That I got when I was, the year of my first business, and I haven't grayed that much since then, and that was 20 years ago. I beat myself to death keeping that thing afloat, and, it's gonna
wow.
happen. I mean, I think that, the
I think
expectation
I
of
got one
wealth
around
without
here.
work is
Yeah.
yeah, it's what happens, man. You're in the middle of it. But expecting wealth without work is a fallacy. It's a tragedy. And
So
if you want it
there's
bad enough,
founders
you'll make it happen.
there's founder stories that annoy me, and there's founder stories that I'm fascinated with these days. And on the one side, I'm always annoyed by those people that are like, "Hey, I started a product last month and I have 10,000 users," or like, "Hey, this is how I made $100,000 in my first 3 months." Um, I think those kind of startups and founders are out there, but they give that kind of oasis kind of view to all the other founders, right? Like everyone believes their idea is going to be the one, or that things are going to be an overnight success. But
Mhm.
I think most startups aren't, right? Like most people do grind.
Yeah.
Even some of the biggest stories that are out there, you don't hear about the 3 or 4 years of grind, all the credit card debt they went into. You only see the tip of the iceberg. They only get in the news when the story goes up. And so I think those
Yeah.
founders who have that overnight success, they're the ones that you see the most online and they get your attention. But I think it's the fewest that I see. And I see another kind of founder that I see sometimes these people posting that are like really talented. They have an idea that's working, but they're just trying to do like five things at once. They're like, should I do this or should
Mhm.
I do this? Or should I do these five other things? And it's like, this person has some talent. They've got something maybe with some potential, but they're not sure if they should go after it. And I find there's a few people out there that are like really talented, but don't have a lot of focus.
Mhm.
And it comes
Yeah,
back to, if you're going to be a successful startup founder, you really need to believe in yourself. You need to be able to get other people to believe in yourself, but you need to have some focus, um, to be able to have a mission that you can execute on.
you're right. I mean, there's so many ways that, running a business can divert your attention from, what are your key success factors, right? And what do you need to be focusing on today? And I think that entrepreneurship in general really teaches lessons to the entrepreneur about what is the highest and best use of your time. And, I still make those mistakes. I showed you that logo a few minutes ago. I spent like 2 hours on that thing. I didn't need to do that. But
Sometimes that's the fun stuff, though, right? Like, along with being a startup founder, you have to deal with a lot of the nightmares. It's really hard. Like, if the emails go down, your whole business stops, and there's no one else. You don't have a tech department to rely on. That's got to be you.
yep,
But on the upside of
yep.
that, you know, theoretically, designing logos and having some influence on the creativity is, to me, one of the perks of being a startup founder.
And here's the main thing, and well, let me extend that anecdote for a moment because it's important why I made the decision to do that logo because I needed a logo so I can get a signage on the side of the trailer, so I can do a photo shoot, so I can build a website, so I can start getting revenue. And there's all these dependencies, and I'm like, I can either farm this out and wait days and days for a logo designer to get back to me, or I can just knock this out and build a bumper sticker and send it off to my local print shop and get this done. And now it's in hand, right? So you know, I got these just yesterday. All right, there's the logo right there. Get quiet, clean power, solar generator rental,
Oh, and you got
QR
the
code,
QR code,
super
and you got the
simple.
QR
All I want
code.
to do. This is a rolling billboard. Is this solar trailer? So that's all I'm trying to do. Is like, hey, let's speed to market matters, right? And if I can do something myself and farm the rest of all this stuff out, and I'll have somebody come and take the photos. I'm not doing that, but I just, if
I
I
did
can
want to.
step in at the right spot and to grease the gears and then move on, that's why I did the logo. I didn't do anything else.
I did want to ask you about that, the trailer side venture, but let's pick that up after the session. Was there another question from your pal that stood out that you might want to tackle? There's a few up
You
there that I
know,
see.
I I I, I, I keep getting pinged by him that he can't see what's going on. So I'm going to um, one moment. I'm gonna give him uh, I'm gonna call in an audible here and give him a link so that he can actually see us. All right, there we go. Yeah, I think that well, I shared with you some of those questions. Um,
Is it okay if I jump on a topic here?
yeah, please
So he
do.
makes two comments that I find are interesting. Is one that he's got users, and that's incredibly hard. It's incredibly hard to get users
Mhm.
on new softwares and new products. So if you've accomplished that, one, congratulations. You got to celebrate the small wins. And then he does follow on to say, how can I test the market fit of my app? And I would argue that if you have return users, not just a buddy who signed on once, but if you have people who are actually using your app to send some messages back and forth, then that's a pretty good indication that there's some interest there.
Yeah, and if it's
I
users
I
other
also
than
just
friends
wanna
and family.
quickly say to Mansion R5, how are you guys? We're doing great. Hope you're doing well too. Sorry, continue.
Who's that?
Someone asked us how we were doing on Reddit.
All right, good deal. We're doing awesome. This is our 22nd episode of the first season of the Founder's Way. Um, and we're talking a little bit about partnerships. We're talking a little bit about starting software companies. Uh, and let's see.
And we have a friend with
And so,
an app. I was just saying that your friend was asking how to test his app for product market fit, but he's already got some users. So I think that's a pretty good
yeah,
indication. What
well,
do you
I don't
think?
know. I mean, that's tough. I mean, how do you test the app? I mean, what are you doing in that realm to do market testing?
Well, so I am also a salesperson. I get my product in front of people all the time. I do get my product in front of industry professionals and need to have it in front of partners a little bit more. I do get great feedback on it, but we've also had this one piece of software that has been stuck at kind of like 99% complete for a few months. So I need to get the product 100% finalized and launched and get a user. And if we reach that point, we will be in a sweet position. We've just been a little bit held back from getting there, but we get great feedback all the time. But really, the dream in the software space, I think, in any product launch space, is to have users. If you have customers and people are giving you revenues for it, those are all the hardest things. And it sounds like your um, pal has done that.
Yeah, I think that you know, he's if you got revenue, and that's the thing is, are they paying users, right? But if it's a software that you can download that's an app and nobody's paying for it, then it's not really a business yet because you're not making any money, right?
Yeah.
And some software companies start that way. They just build a user base and then figure out how to monetize. But it ain't going to last, right? Unless you figure out how to build revenue, and it's something that solves a need that people see, whether it's a freemium model or not.
But I
Um,
think there's two approaches, right? For the smaller guys, it's really important to have users. If you're really going big, there is an ideal today that I don't necessarily agree with, but there's a lot of companies that just think if you can just grow your users, if you can get 1 million users on there, you can exit that user base and someone else can figure out how to monetize it. Um, and so I think it's important to monetize and have revenues, but it's important to know that a lot of startups don't monetize and have revenues sometimes. Sometimes it's just early.
yeah, and it takes years, and because of that, unless you're independently wealthy, that's why you need venture funding to get you through those times when you're building a user base. And that means that
And
you have to be
that's
able to
why it's
convince
two very
them that
different
it's worth investing.
that's two very different strategies, right? Like, do you have something that can monetize and get revenues in the short term so you can bootstrap and build out in some direction? Or are you building something that gets a ton of users but doesn't have revenues? In which case, your opportunity to do venture funding is greatly increased. Any it just seems like today any product that touches a lot of people people will throw money at something like that.
Yeah. I'm hoping they're gonna throw money at texassolartrailers.com, which doesn't exist yet as a website.
Oh, you have the bumper sticker before the website. That was brave.
I need
I
to put
imagine you
this
saved
on.
I imagine you own the URL though before you did that.
I own the URL, of course, yeah. Now I just need to, do a photo shoot so I can, get the website up. Gotta have the trailers on there, you know?
Yeah.
And I need to find an equipment rental software that I like. So, I'm not gonna build that from scratch. There's like 20 options, so I'm just doing demos right now and doing software selection for the right piece of the equipment software. And since you're in that space, I don't know if you have any recommendations. We could talk offline about that. I need all the help I can get.
Yeah, let's get into that offline. Uh, so how we doing here? We're getting up to the top of the half hour. Again, my name is Jake.
Yep.
This is Kyle. We are doing 30-minute sessions on business and startups every Wednesday in the afternoon. And we will be back next week. But before we go, if there's anyone out there in Reddit land or LinkedIn land that has a question for us on business or today's topics, we do love to engage with the audience. And Kyle, it seems like your friend has a great app and some really good progress. And we could always bring him in for next week's episode if he wanted to discuss it more in depth and tell people about his product and his process.
Absolutely. So, I'm gonna send that to him now. I think that he was having trouble, seeing that, live, but it's gonna be out there and ready ready for consumption on LinkedIn in no time. So, with that, Jake, I think, it's good to see you again. There's a lot we're trying to pack into a half hour, and, I hope that we can do that again next week.
Hey, everyone out there in Reddit, we really appreciate your time. Again, we will be back next week. We are active in the Reddit space, in the Discord space with startups, and be sure to connect with us there. We appreciate any upvotes or follows, and we look forward to coming back. We appreciate all your time.
All right. Have a good one, y'all. Bye bye.